About a year ago, my best friend Lily and I had been dating. We were both 19 years old back then. It was a dark and eerie Wednesday night when Lily texted me, asking for a big favor. Her younger brother Max, who was just 10 years old, had a baseball game that evening. Since her parents were out of town, she couldn't make it due to her overwhelming homework. She pleaded with me to take Max to the game and bring him back home afterward. I didn't have any plans, so I agreed to help her out. The baseball field was located in a secluded area, surrounded by dense forest. To reach the field, we had to park in a distant parking lot and walk for about 5 minutes along a narrow path. The whole setting felt unsettling, especially in the pitch-black darkness. However, I put on a brave face as Max went off to join his team, while I made my way to the bleachers. The game went on for what seemed like an eternity, extending into extra innings. By the time it ended, darkness had enveloped the surroundings completely. Max had a brief conversation with his coach, making us the last ones remaining at the field. With the lights turned off, the only things visible were the intimidating trees. As we walked back along the path, a notification chimed on my phone. It was Lily, asking where we were. I replied, informing her about the prolonged game and our return to the parking lot. Just as we continued walking, Max abruptly halted and pointed ahead, asking if I saw what he saw. Struggling to make out any details, I squinted and caught a glimpse of a figure in the distance. The person then veered off the path and disappeared into the trees. To avoid alarming Max, I pretended not to notice and assured him that there was nothing to worry about. Reluctantly, we resumed our journey. As we passed the spot where the figure had vanished, rustling sounds emerged from the nearby trees. Despite my growing unease, I remained silent, and we kept walking. A minute later, we finally reached the parking lot, where a wave of panic crashed over me. I searched my pocket for the car keys, but found them missing. They must have slipped out when I sat on the bleachers. Contemplating whether to retrieve them, Max once again drew my attention to someone lurking on the path. Realizing that going back was too risky, I abandoned the idea. The mysterious figure, which had deeply disturbed me, raised countless questions. Who would choose to sit alone in the heart of a dark forest so late at night? Both Max and I agreed that walking home, which was only a 15-minute journey, was the best option. However, the concern of finding my keys haunted my mind. With a heavy heart, we embarked on the straight stretch of neighborhood roads, illuminated by a decent number of streetlights. Looking back, I caught sight of the figure once more. This time, the additional light revealed that it was a man in his mid-30s, standing beneath a streetlight and fixated on something in his hands. Straining my eyes, I discerned that he was clutching a knife. Our discomfort grew, but we pressed on, constantly checking behind us. The man seemed to shadow our movements, shifting from one streetlight to another whenever I glanced back. At first, I believed it to be a trick of my imagination, but the dwindling number of streetlights confirmed otherwise. As the man emitted faint groans, my fear intensified. To escape this nightmare, we quickened our pace, turning a corner that led to Lily's house, our final destination. Suddenly, thunderous footsteps echoed behind us. The man was now charging towards us at full speed. Panic consumed us, and we sprinted as if our lives depended on it. Reaching Lily's house, we crouched behind a bush in the front yard, frantically messaging her to open the front door. After what felt like an eternity, the door creaked open, and Max and I darted inside. Peering through a window facing the street, we spotted the man in the middle of the road, aimlessly circling while emitting eerie sounds. Gripping his knife tightly, he began toppling people's trash bins, further fueling our terror. Without wasting a moment, we dialed the police, but as expected, the man vanished by the time they arrived. They never managed to locate him. My girlfriend safely drove me home that night, and during the ride, I recounted the horrifying ordeal. To my relief, Lily's parents expressed gratitude for keeping Max safe and harbored no ill feelings towards me. A few days later, I returned to the field, accompanied by some friends. To my astonishment, my lost keys lay on the ground beside the bleachers. Overall, the experience was an unimaginably terrifying one. The person who had relentlessly pursued us that night was undoubtedly disturbed, and the incident left an indelible mark on my memory. Just a few years back, I loved to play basketball. I wasn't really a star or anything, just wanted to have a sport on my college resume. There's this one game that stands out in my memory. We were playing against a neighboring school, although I can't recall its name. It wasn't a crucial game, so there weren't many people in the bleachers. We were trailing behind, something like 22-13, when this kid from the opposing team started trash-talking me and a few of my teammates, especially targeting me because of my size and hair. After every missed shot, he would throw wisest comments my way. I tried to ignore it, but it reached a breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore, so I gave the kid a hard shove, causing him to fall and slide off the court. My teammates managed to hold back his angry teammates, and the referee blew the whistle, ejecting me from the game. I didn't care at that moment. It felt too good to worry about the consequences. I walked right past my coach without a second glance and headed straight for the locker room. However, when I reached the locker room door, it was locked for some reason. I didn't want to ask my coach awkwardly to unlock it, so I decided to go around to the other side of the boys' locker room. Surprisingly, the outside entrance was open. It was unusual because that door was never left open. As I stepped inside, I noticed how cold it was, just as chilly as the outside. The door must have been open throughout the game. Moreover, the lights were off, and I didn't have my phone with me to use the flashlight. With the door shut behind me, I began feeling around the walls, desperately searching for the light switch. As I moved my hand against the brick wall, I heard a locker click, the sound of it closing. Instinctively, I called out, "Who's there?" assuming it was one of my teammates. There was no reply. The darkness enveloped the room, but it wasn't the kind where you couldn't see anything. I cautiously walked down the aisles, scanning each one for anyone who could have made that sound. All the while, I heard footsteps, signaling that I wasn't alone. Reaching the last aisle, I caught a glimpse, just for a second, of someone massive moving behind the lockers on the opposite side. It seemed like they were hiding. My heart skipped a beat, and fear washed over me. I knew I had to leave immediately. I hurriedly made my way to the main entrance, attempting to pull the door open, only to find it locked from the inside as well. Though disappointed, I discovered the light switch next to the door and turned it on. The return of light offered some relief, boosting my confidence to confront whoever was in the locker room. I began circling the locker aisles, but there was no sign of anyone. Yet, the footsteps persisted, always on the opposite side of the aisle from where I stood. With each step, I called out, "Who's there?" but received no response, not even a cough. Exhausted from walking and running around the aisles, I noticed tiny holes between the lockers that allowed a view into the next aisle. An idea struck me. I could peek through those holes to see who was on the other side. Quietly, I got down on my knees and pressed my eye against one of the small openings. At first, all I could see was darkness, as if something was blocking the view. But soon, I realized what I was staring at, a single eye. The sight sent shivers down my spine. I bolted out of that back door faster than I ever ran in any of my games. I approached my coach, who looked understandably annoyed, and told him there was someone in the locker room. Initially, he assumed it was just the janitor, but I convinced him otherwise. He glanced at me with a face that showed he believed me. After the next timeout, he instructed the referees to pause the game, as there might be an intruder in the locker room. Half of my team, along with the coach, went in to investigate. However, by the time they arrived, whoever was in there had vanished. I didn't feel foolish because everyone seemed to trust my account. I mean, the room was freezing and the back door was still wide open, for crying out loud. At the end of the game, we discovered that 4 of my teammates from the freshman locker aisle were missing their clothes. It became clear to me the kind of person I had encountered in that locker room. I'm just relieved that I never came face to face with them. I'm a huge sports fan, and let me tell you about this crazy experience I had last summer at a Major League Baseball game in the city near where I live. I went to the game with my friend Max, who is just as passionate about sports as I am. Our seats were on the first level, right by the first baseline, and the atmosphere was electric that night, with the stadium filled to the brim on that beautiful summer evening. Anyway, during the 7th inning, I felt a vibration in my pocket and realized my phone was receiving an airdrop request from another iPhone. The sender's name was simply iPhone, which piqued my curiosity. I decided to accept the airdrop, and it turned out to be a photo of me. The picture was zoomed in and seemed to have been taken from the upper deck near the 3rd baseline. It was kind of funny, so I showed it to Max, and we both had a good laugh. We wondered if someone we knew was at the game, playing a prank on us. I glanced over at the upper deck area, but the distance made it impossible to recognize anyone. Just to be sure, I checked my Snapchat snap maps, but none of my friends were at the game. As the game progressed into the next inning, I received another airdrop. This time, it was another zoomed-in photo of me, but with a red X drawn over my face. It was strange, but still, we brushed it off as someone messing with us. Then, during the 9th and final inning, I got yet another airdrop. This time, it was a video of someone zooming in on me. The unsettling part was that the video seemed to have been filmed from the same section we were in, just a few feet behind us. I looked around, searching for anything out of the ordinary, but couldn't spot anything or anyone suspicious. With such a massive crowd, it was impossible to identify the culprit. The game finally ended, and Max and I made our way through the dense crowd back to my car, which was parked a few blocks away in a nearby parking garage. As we hopped into the car and I started the engine, I felt my phone vibrate again. I checked it and saw another airdrop from the same sender. Curiosity got the better of me, and I accepted it, only to find a note entry this time. The entry displayed my name, along with my address, and in all caps, it read, "I will get you." That sent a chill down my spine. We immediately scanned the parking garage, looking for any signs of the person who kept sending us those creepy messages. Suddenly, a black car with tinted windows, parked somewhat behind us, peeled out of the garage with screeching tires. Neither Max nor I recognized the car, and it added to our growing unease. We sat in the car for several minutes, discussing who could be behind this bizarre prank. Honestly, we couldn't think of anyone who would do something like that to us. It was just too unnerving. In the end, I decided not to tell anyone else about the incident. Thankfully, nothing else happened afterward, but I still can't shake off the curiosity of finding out who was taking those pictures and sending those eerie messages. It remains a mystery to this day.